gathered a mass. And poets, artists, and dreamers are like grass. And if the talent I have is for nurturing talent, then succeed or fail, I shall see they sail first class. And my father can go stick it up his ass.
Would you pray with me? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ruach haolam mosei maaseh bereshit. Blessed are you, Holy One, our God, Spirit of life who moves throughout the universe, who each day recreates the world as on the first day. God, open the eyes of our heart, open the ears of our mind, open our lives and make us one with you, and in love. Amen. All right, Emanuel, you got to draw it all together now. Let's see how we do it. With a little Allen Ginsberg, who is my favorite poet in the world. If you met me about 5 years ago, you might have noticed that the spectacles and the beard and much longer flyaway hair and the bald spot on top actually made us look a little uncannily similar. And certainly, when I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area to attend seminary at the Pacific School of Religion, I wandered the streets, maybe not indulging in certain scheduled substances, the way that Allen and his comrades in the Beat generation did, but certainly following in their footsteps. The Bay Area is full of old hangouts of the Beats, those poets and writers and activists and nonconformists who arose out of the conforming society of the 1950s and 1960s and embodied different, more playful, more anything can happen kind of ethos. I'd go anywhere that I knew the Beats had gone, and I'd take my friends with me. We'd go to the cafes where they wrote their poems, the road where Ginsberg wandered the streets that they wandered 60, going on 70 years ago? Boy. And the interesting thing about Allen Ginsberg's masterpiece, Howl, which we heard a little bit of earlier, is that it almost wasn't published. Or what I should say is, it was published, but then modern-day Inquisition and decided that his ecstatic expressions of individuality, and particularly being a queer Jewish man, a queer Jewish leftist nonconformist, constituted obscenity. And you can actually go back and read the transcripts of the obscenity trial for Howl as they took published books to court and argued that it had no redeeming social or cultural or artistic value. And they brought in all sorts of stuffed shirt experts from colleges and from universities and literary critics to explain why it was a bad poem and it should not be published. And one in particular caught my attention, a fellow who worked at one of the universities in the Bay Area who said, well, it's just not original. He's just copying Walt Whitman. And if you know the great 19th century American poet Walt Whitman, you'll know that, yes, he inspired the anything can happen stream of consciousness, ecstatic poetry of the Beat generation. But there's nothing original here. John of Patmos, who wrote the book of Revelation, didn't particularly like his original take. on the Jewish tradition and on society. They didn't particularly like his nonconformity as a member of the early Christian community in the 1st century of the Common Era, so they shoved him off to the Roman version of Alcatraz, to the island of Patmos, and I won't go over the whole historical record because Anne did that wonderfully a couple weeks ago. Apocalyptic literature. While he was there, you could hardly be blamed for thinking that maybe he in some of the same schedule substances that the beat poets were when he wrote the book of Revelation. I don't know how creatures can have eyes all over and voices and thrones made of jade. I don't really understand how it works. It's a little wild, a little non-conforming, to say the least. And here's the interesting thing about the book of Revelation is that it includes 250 references to the Hebrew Bible. 250 to the Bible that John and those early Christian disciples knew. It's as if he's digging back into the past, going back in history to these images, wisdom of his forebears, to try to discover what is real and true and strange here and now. In addition to being inspired by Whitman, the beats were all the poets of Japan and China, haiku poets. And there's a saying by the poet Basho, which I think is particularly beautiful. And that saying is, "Do not follow in the footsteps of the wise. Seek what they sought." Whether you're John of Patmos, crafting an apocalyptic vision of liberation and transformation out of the edges and your Jewish tradition, or whether you're Allen Ginsberg, articulating a howl against mechanized conformist American society and the atom bomb and the war machine, or whether you're Paolo Veronese, adding some dogs and guys picking their teeth to a painting of the Last Supper. Or whether you're some church musicians who realize that, hey, yo ho, a pirate actually kind of fits the meter of a bunch of hymns. Or whether you're a church that's decided, you know what, I don't think we like the homophobic stuff from the tradition. Why don't we live the love and welcome and inclusion stuff? Why don't we draw on that part of our tradition to make a new church that looks a little different than the ones that our ancestors knew, but which is still in that spirit? Or whether you're a person, just any one of us, trying to live authentically. Don't follow in the footsteps of the wise. Seek what they sought. Because if you follow just in their footsteps, if you just go wandering through the streets of San Francisco looking for, as the poem says, an angry fix, or if you're just looking for the places where something happened in the past, you're going to miss all the cool things that are happening in the present. And if you're bound by the tradition so that you can't see the fun and the excitement and the beauty and the challenge of new ways of painting, singing, poeting, living, working, hoping, well, not a lot more fun than the Inquisition. So today, on this Anything Can Happen Sunday, I want to leave us with that. I want to invite us. I believe that we are being invited to seek what the wise, the madmen, the poets, the painters, the pirates sought. Because if we go searching, if we follow not in their footsteps, but in their passion for justice and love and creativity, well then, my friends, just about anything can happen. Amen. we give as a sign of hope, as a way of connecting our past and the labor that we have done and the lives we have led to a future we can't yet see, but which we trust will be a thing of beauty